Have you ever wanted your own AI sales rep that can qualify leads while you sleep? Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to set up your very first Vapi voice agent that can handle lead qualification, and then syncing that agent to your HubSpot CRM so that every conversation is exactly where your team needs it. Today, we're going to be going step by step on how to spin up your AI sales agent, syncing this with your HubSpot CRM, and making sure the conversation flows smoothly. By the end of this video, I aim to have to you guys a functional voice agent built using Vapi's workflows that can capture leads, qualify leads, and sync that conversation history and data directly into your HubSpot CRM. And considering nearly 40% of businesses are using HubSpot, you'll not only know how to integrate an AI voice agent into your existing HubSpot sales workflow, but you'll also have the confidence to pitch and implement AI voice agents into ubiquitous and common CRM systems that real businesses use on a daily basis. Now, this one's going to be an extensive one, so we're just going to jump straight into it, guys. So let's get into it. Okay, so here is the complete AI outbound lead qualification agent, and we're going to be going through every part of setting this up yourself. But to give you a high level overview of exactly what's going on here is we have, in essence, an outbound lead qualification caller that distributes calls to interested leads, qualifies them, and ultimately suggests or receives a most appropriate time by a user to call back and book in an appointment. Now, it's important to note here that we're not doing live appointment scheduling with this particular workflow, as I've done numerous videos on Vapi-based scheduling, but this one is quite extensive as itself. And we're using the new Vapi workflows feature here to really map out the conversational pathways in which a conversation could occur. And to note, we have an introduction in which, after our first message, a user can really say one of three things. That is, they're too busy to make this call, in which we're going down some pathways to collect their preferred contact information and so forth. One is that they're just going to hang up and keep their response quite brief, in which we handle that as well. And then our optimal conversational pathway is if they've agreed to chat and showed interest in learning about our offer, in which we're going to conduct some needs discoveries. We're going to find a solution that aligns with their pain points and so forth, and adding some conversational handling to facilitate that. Do a qualification assessment here, and having a bunch of different paths in whether we're accurately qualifying that lead. Have they met the qualification criteria? Is the timing wrong? Did they really qualify or not, in which we're all accounting for here within this conversation. And then we have some global nodes here to escalate the call to a human in the event that the user explicitly asks for such. We'll have a global prompt here, which is sort of setting the role, context, and task of the agent. So really a sound and solid system here. Now, that's not it, guys. We have a lot more going on here. And what we're going to do is we're going to integrate this with HubSpot, of course. HubSpot being a very ubiquitous CRM system that a lot of businesses use, close to 40%, 38% of businesses use HubSpot to be exact, in which this system is going to integrate directly with. Now, as I mentioned, the Vapi side of things isn't where this system ends. We have some n8n workflows that handle the distribution side of things in terms of triggering when a new contact is added to our CRM, getting the applicable details of that contact, and then distributing our workflow or our outbound lead qualification AI voice agent to that contact, and then tagging some lead status labels here to sort of follow exactly what's happening with the call. And then on the end of call reporting side, we're logging, what leads are qualified, what leads aren't qualified, what leads have we attempted to contact, and tagging where applicable. So plenty to get through. And on top of that, of course, we need our HubSpot CRM here. Really, I'm going to explain in essence what this system achieves. We're going to be triggering a call when a new contact has been created within HubSpot. And each new contact that is created within HubSpot automatically gets assigned a new lead status. So we're going to be filtering by new contacts added to our CRM that match this lead status condition, e.g. new. We're going to be distributing our outbound lead qualification caller to qualify over the phone. And then post call, we're going to tag that lead status with whatever happened on the call. So perhaps the lead was unqualified, e.g. they didn't really provide any adequate responses to our posed questions and hence didn't fit in our qualification criteria, or perhaps they were qualified, in which we'll create an open deal, or we couldn't reach them, we reach voicemail, in which we'll tag as attempted to contact, or they want a callback time, in which we'll tag for bad timing. Now, I'm not going to get really in depth here into the HubSpot side of things. Of course, each business environment and your HubSpot environment has associated workflows and automation based on these lead status tags. So perhaps in your HubSpot environment, when a lead status changes from new to open, we associate them and move them into a deal stage and, hopping along, our sales pipeline. And we're not going to get into the pipeline, but for reference here, we have just a basic pipeline here. And I don't have any workflow automations HubSpot side set up. This is just a free account to demonstrate really in essence how to first integrate a voice agent with HubSpot in the first place. If I go back to our lead qualification agent, we're extracting a lot of data points during conversation here. And this is why workflows in particular can be quite powerful. We're able to segment different conversational branches based on specific user responses and extract information as needed. So we have about 20 or so variables we're extracting during a conversation in any given path that we need to represent and display on our HubSpot CRM. Now, the first thing we're going to be doing is how do we integrate HubSpot in the first place to make a call using our agent to a particular HubSpot contact. And then secondly, how do we append contacts systematically using something like n8n and authenticate with our HubSpot environment? So how this is going to go in terms of the structure of this video is we're going to jump into some fresh n8n workflows, and we're first going to integrate and authenticate with a HubSpot trigger node, in which this node would be triggered on an event, which will be when a new contact is added and that contact lead status equal to new. And then how do we insert data back into the CRM? And that's going to be integrated with a different authentication method. So a few sort of things we need to set up authentication side and connecting n8n with our HubSpot. But we're going to jump into all of that today. And then after we've set that up, we are going to jump into Vapi and creating a new workflow that resembles this and walking you through exactly step by step on how to use workflows and how it all sort of ties together, and how you can implement some tips and tricks that'll enhance the overall effectiveness of your agent using a more decision tree based flow when it comes to talking with a user over the phone. And then finally, we're going to run through some tests, make sure everything's working perfectly, and then that'll be it for today. So it's going to be a really big one, guys, and we may as well just jump straight into it. So over in a brand new workflow over in n8n, we're going to add our very first step. And this is going to be our HubSpot trigger node. So when new contacts enter our pipeline or our CRM, we really want to contact them. And we want to enable call distribution to occur each time a new contact is added to our CRM. Okay, so we're going to go up to search nodes here and we're going to type out HubSpot and we'll click into HubSpot. And this is going to be our triggers section. We have 18 triggers that we can choose from here. And we're going to find on contact created. Awesome. The first thing we're going to want to do is connect with our HubSpot credentials. And this is where things get slightly tricky and a lot of people get stumped on this because it is a bit temperamental. You know, sometimes we can authenticate in, sometimes we can't, but when you're authenticated in, we're all good to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new credential here, and this is going to give us a few things. Our online authentication redirect URL, which will be important in a second. We know we need a client ID, client secret, developer API key, and an app ID. So exactly how do we get this? So in your HubSpot, we're not actually going to be in our main HubSpot CRM. We're going to head over to developers. So make sure you have a HubSpot developer account. And when we're in here, we can go over to the sidebar called apps. And when you click into apps over here, we'll want to create app at the top right-hand corner. And we can name this whatever we want. Let's call this n8n. Give it a description, testing, for example. And now what we're going to do is head over to the authentication tab. Awesome. So in our redirect URL, this is exactly where we can put our OAuth redirect URL that we see in n8n. So we can go ahead and copy that, head back over to here and paste that in like so. Perfect. Now we're going to have some scopes. Now the reason we're going to have to create two apps here for both the HubSpot trigger node and the normal HubSpot nodes is that they require different scopes each. Of course, for a trigger node where we're triggering and returning some details about events happening, we only need read permissions HubSpot side. When we're appending contacts with all the normal HubSpot nodes, we need both read and write access. And we can't just create one app with all scopes. It has to be very specific based on the n8n documentation, which I can show you in a second. So over in n8n docs, we need to use this form of authentication. So where we're using a developer API key, and specifically this is where we need our client ID, our client secret, our developer API key, and our app ID. And what we need to do here is we need to create an app with these specific authentication permissions. All right, so as I just mentioned, all read access, not too many here. We've got about 7, but the main important thing here is we need to go to the apps page, create an app, give it a description and so forth, get all the required credentials, and then we'll copy our n8n OAuth redirect URL, which will give us a pop-up screen when we eventually do connect with this, and we'll be good to go. So this is specific for the trigger node. Now, if I scroll down here and the normal HubSpot node, you'll see we both need read and write access. So this will be a separate app that we have to create to have the required permissions for our normal HubSpot node. So we need our client ID, client secret, developer API key, and app ID. Easy enough. So over on developers, we can just go ahead and add new scope, and we know the scopes that we need if we come back to the documentation, and I'll leave all the docs in the description below. We know these are the required scopes that we need, so we can just copy this first one, copy that, and we'll want to check that, and then we'll copy the second one. And note, this scope name is automatically added whenever you create a new app HubSpot side. So we'll paste the second one in, click that, the third one, click that, check, fourth one, check, fifth, and finally the last one here. So all read access here pertaining to CRM objects, companies, objects and schemas across deals, contacts, and companies. Go ahead and check that. We'll update, and you'll see our 7 scoped permissions here. All we have to do now is we're going to hit create app. This will load for a moment and we'll see success. Your app was created. I can head back over to auth and you'll see we can copy the app ID, client secret, and we'll be good to go. So we can copy that. So we got app ID here, come back to n8n, paste in like so. And we have our client ID coming back, bang. And our client secret, we have to hit show, copy, coming back over, paste in like so. Now we need our developer API key, which you get from the side here. Keys, developer API key. I'm going to open this in a new tab. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show this, copy that, and we'll head back over to n8n, paste that in like so. And now when I hit connect my account, we're going to get that redirect URL pop up in a separate window in which we need to authenticate into our main HubSpot CRM. And you'll see that in just a second. So if I hit connect my account, I'm going to get a pop up here and you'll see two accounts. So you'll have your main CRM and the name of your main CRM as well as your developer account. Now don't click the developer account, hit your main CRM. So we're trying to connect this app, which is connected to our n8n, with our main CRM so we can start to read in some data from events happening in that main CRM. So we're going to hit choose account and you'll see connecting n8n to HubSpot. You're connecting with an unverified app. That's fine. Hit connect app. Connection successful. This will close in about 5 seconds. You'll see we're connected. Perfect. Now what I can do is I can go ahead and test step, and I deleted all the contacts just to show. We're going to create a new contact and job title Grandmaster, verse me on chess if you want. Change that lead status to new so we have populated data here to work off of in terms of distributing the calls to. Now you'll note my workflow is listening for that test event. So I'm going to go ahead and create that new contact. Cool. And now over in our HubSpot trigger, we have the appropriate output data. So what we're going to do is head up to the right-hand corner here and pin this data so we don't lose it. Now you'll notice here, we don't have any details surrounding, who this contact is, their phone number, their name, any personal information that we need to include in a dynamic variable to give Vapi. And how do we do that? Well, what we can do is we can search this contact ID to return some details about it. And this ties into the second thing I mentioned, where we're going to have to set up another app with different read-write permissions within our developer HubSpot to integrate with n8n. And specifically, we're going to look for HubSpot here. We can add a node, and this is just going to be our normal 31 actions here. And what we're going to do here is get a contact. And you'll see here, we need to get a contact from their ID, in which we're going to parse in our contact ID that we had got from the trigger node. Now, to connect with our HubSpot account, which can interact with this particular node, we need to create new credential. And this one, we're going to be using OAuth 2. So if I refer back to the docs here and scroll down using OAuth 2, we still need to create an app, everything we had just did, now with different scopes. So this is going to be a lot more scopes, but we're going to jump over into Developers HubSpot. This is the app we had just created for the trigger node. Let's go back to the app section and create an app. And we can call this whatever you want, whatever you wish. So name, description. We'll now head over to auth here. And again, adding that redirect URL at the top here. Bang, bang. And now we're going to have to add all these scopes. So firstly, we're going to need forms. So we can copy that and we're going to check forms. The second one we're going to need is tickets. Check that. The third is we're going to need objects, companies, read and write access. So I can just copy this and we can just paste that in here. We'll need read, write. Coming back over, we'll need the company's read. We'll check that. And then we'll need contacts read. So bit of tedious manual work here, but when it's all set up, you'll be good to go. And then we need contacts read and write. Bang, bang. And then we'll need objects deals read and write also. And bang, bang. And then we'll need schemas deals read. So again, bit of tedious work here, but that is fine. We don't mind it. We don't mind it. That's what it's all about. Pasting in. Just a bit of back and forth here. When we have all our scopes, we can hit update, and we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We should have 14 total scopes. 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14. Cool. When we have that in here, we can create the app. This will take a moment. When we have our app set up, success, your app was created. Head back into the Auth tab, and we'll need our client ID, client secret. Client ID and client secret here. So we can come back here, copy that. That was our client ID. Show our secret, copy that, and paste it in like so. We're going to connect the account, and this is going to bring another pop-up using that redirect URL, where we're going to hit into our main HubSpot CRM. So never click the developers here. We'll choose account. And sometimes you'll see this screen pop up and it just remains blank. So exit out of that, try again. And sometimes you'll also see couldn't complete this connection, authorization failed, client ID. So a bit buggy here in terms of n8n. Just exit out, go back in and try a few more times. So for whatever reason, you know, connecting to HubSpot is a bit temperamental, like I suggest, but you'll eventually get this screen. You're connecting to an unverified app, whatever. Connect app, connection successful, bang, can exit out of that. And now we'll have our normal node authentication configured. Cool. Now we can use this credential to check resource contact, and we're going to get contact by its ID, contact ID, and that's the contact we had pinned in our first data output, which is the one I had created myself, Grandmaster. So as far as credentials go with HubSpot, that's all you need to do. When you've done that, you're ahead of a lot of people. So well done, give yourself a pat on the back. We're going to test that workflow, and you'll see we have some items that we can now use to filter in between whether that lead status is equal to new or not. So what we're going to do now is add a node if, and we're going to route items based on true or false outcomes. And what we're going to look for here is lead status. And sometimes these are named differently. So you'll see HS lead status, that's what we're looking for. So we're going to check if the lead status is equal to new, then it'll be true, and we can continue distributing a call. Else, if they're an in progress lead, attempted to contact lead, and so forth, similar to what we see here within our HubSpot, we don't want to contact them. We only want to contact these new leads. And this will be different from case to case. Perhaps new leads that you're wanting to call are tagged differently. Perhaps in progress or open, whatever your HubSpot environment needs. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to distribute our call to. So getting exciting. So what we'll do is we'll add an HTTP post request. And this is where we start to tie in the concepts of Vapi. So think of this as our Vapi call. We'll set this up in a moment. But what happens after a post request to send our agent to this lead? So we have one of two outcomes really. And that's going to be the call was successful. We got a status 200 or something of that nature. That means our call was connected. And we want to update our lead status that reflects accurately what's going on behind the scenes when it comes to our autonomous AI sales agent. So my apologies, we're going to update it to in progress. So that lead is going to be in progress. So we're going to change from new to in progress if we can distribute a call. If it failed, we're going to update that to attempted to contact. So we never got to be able to reach that lead and contact that lead. So we should reflect that appropriately. And 9 times out of 10, it's because you're either out of credits or something of that nature, or the number is wrong, and you'll need to rectify that issue within HubSpot itself. So put simply, we're going to distribute a call using Vapi, and specifically our workflow. If the call was connected, we'll update or append that contact to lead status in progress. If it failed, attempted to contact. Quite straightforward. So here in error, we're going to change this to continue using error output. So we have the success and error. And what we'll do here is we'll add a new node on success, which is going to be HubSpot. And click that. And we're going to create or update a contact. And we're going to have the same sort of scenario here for the on error, create or update a contact. As I suggested, because we're getting the contact ID from here, we're able to map that directly through to our HubSpot. And with these HubSpot appending contacts, we use their email actually as unique identifiers, which is really strange to me, but it's just the way HubSpot works. So we're going to have to return and grab their email from this get contact stuff. So a lot of data gets returned, but we will have the user's email somewhere scattered here, which we'll go and find in just a moment. So as far as this goes, we can leave this for now. Just go ahead and hit save. And this is going to be a call distribution side of things. Now, we cannot continue this workflow until we set up this HTTP request, which put simply is we're going to post to api.vapi.ai, specifically the call endpoint. And we're going to use headers as authentication. So we can map this out now, actually. So we're going to use header, name, bearer. This is going to be a Vapi API key, and then we're going to send a payload body, and we'll just use JSON here, and then we're going to use specifically a workflow ID here, but we haven't created that. So as far as this goes, let's just leave that. Now, we're going to jump into the Vapi side of things, where we're going to build our qualification agent, and I'm going to bring you in behind the scenes of my rationale on building this out and how I'm mapping out different conversational pathways using the new workflow. Workflow was in beta for a long time on Vapi and didn't really work too well until recently, and I've done a bunch of testing on it. Works pretty well, and I'm quite happy with some test workflows I've done in preparation for this video. So we're going to jump straight into the Vapi dashboard and build this out from scratch. So over here, over on Vapi, we've just created a blank workflow, and we're going to call this lead qual Morgan. And of course, the first thing to do when we're making an outbound call or an inbound call is to have an introduction. Now, our introduction here is going to be quite simple. And before we get into the introduction, we've got something up here on the left hand side. We've got global prompt as well as adding a node, and over in workflows we can add about 5 different nodes here: ending the call, tool calls, transfer call, API requests, and conversation nodes. Now, these conversation nodes are each blocks in which we can start to map out the conversation. So based on conditions of a first response by the user, we can map to different conversation paths based on that first response to our first message and introduction. And we can also add something like an API request over here in workflows, in which we can retrieve data or get data or send data externally from our workflow. We won't get into API requests here on our workflow, but what we will do is we'll add something like a transfer call node, in which we can transfer the call to a human if the user had requested that. There's also things like end call, which we can use, as well as tool calls as well, which we can use. So a few different nodes here that we can start to utilize to make our conversation quite powerful. And this is the great thing about workflows, where we can accurately predict and direct a conversation based on user response conditions. And I'll show you that in just a second. In terms of the introduction here, and what we can do is this will always be static when you create a new workflow. This will populate automatically. What we're doing for the introduction is specifying the first message. So when a user receives a call and they pick up, what should that agent first say when that user picks up? And importantly here, we've got a bunch of different settings that we can configure in these conversational nodes that'll help us create much more powerful and effective agents. And specifically, like I just mentioned, we can specify a first message and a prompt for this node, as well as we can also enable a global node, which makes this accessible by all other nodes. We won't do that for now. We've got model settings here. So what LLM should this prompt be using? And we've got a bunch of, well, we've got two providers here, OpenAI and Anthropic. We're just going to leave these normal for now. We've got voice settings where we can specify different voices for each node, which may be cool. We've also got our speech to text transcriber settings. Vapi's just released Cartesia's Ink Whisper, which is pretty cool. And we've also got something here called extract variables. So we can start to build a repository of variables that we've extracted during the conversation, which we'll be doing in the context of this workflow throughout the entirety of that workflow. And then we'll receive that in something like an end of call report that's sent to our server URL, our organization server URL, and use those that were collected during the conversation to determine qualification status. So that's where we're going to be working towards today. But to get there, we need to specify our first message. So we're going to say something like hello. And with outbound callers, because we're distributing call based on HubSpot contact information, we already know a few variables based on that contact before we've even placed that call. So we can use a dynamic variable denoted by double curly braces, customer.name. So you'll see that this has gone to purple, meaning that's a dynamic variable. And what this will say is when we start distributing calls from our HubSpot contacts is it'll be hello Jonas or whatever name that contact has. And then we can say, comma, this is Morgan from Growth Partners. How are you today? So this first message is uninterruptible. It's always static. We're trying to invoke a response out of the user. So a user will either hang up immediately, they will say, yes, my day's been good, or it's been bad. They will respond to this question 9 times out of 10. So that's just the first message, but this this node here, we can start to map out a bit more with a prompt. So we can say, you are Morgan from Growth Partners. Start with, we help businesses improve their operational efficiency through custom software solutions. Do you have, and now we're asking that second question. So the first message is simply a placeholder on what to say when the call is answered. Really, our main question here is going to be derived through this prompt. So we're going to say, do you have a few minutes to chat about how we might be able to help your business? Question mark, and we'll end that single quote there. And we'll say something like, use a friendly, consultative tone. Now that's really going to be our first node here. So this introduction style conversational node. As far as model settings and transcription settings, and I might actually change this to deepgram, we're going to be good to go. And you'll see we have some cool things here on the latency as well as cost of this particular node. So now we need to think of in terms of like a decision tree based logic. You know, what happens when we ask that pertinent question or that first introduction message? What happens when we say that? So do you have a few minutes to chat about how we might be able to help your business? And put quite simply, there is probably one of three outcomes in which a user may go down. And those outcomes are the user will abruptly end the call and just say no. A user will say, I'm busy right now, and maybe they want to get called back at another time. You know, the timing in terms of the call itself isn't perfect. Or the user is interested, and then we can start to go down this qualification process. What we're going to do is we're going to add a node, conversational node, and in fact we might just add 3. Okay, and we want to delete these paths. So we have one of 3 outcomes really. Okay, and you can see how our tree really starts to take shape. So let's pick a path in which we want to go down first, and let's handle, in the event a user is busy, perhaps want to call back at a specific time. Phone calls not the right medium in which to contact them. Perhaps we want to collect their email and everything like that. Let's map that out. We're just going to click this little circle here and drag this line to this one, and you'll see here on this path we have a condition. Oh, I've just deleted that. We'll just use one of these. So on this path, we'll have some condition here. So why should the agent go down this path following a response to this introduction first and second question? And put simply, we're going to map this as the user said they're too busy, but seems potentially interested. So if a user is busy, they're not necessarily disinterested in what we have to say. They just cannot have a call right now. So what we're going to say here in terms of the condition is the user said they're too busy right now, but seems potentially interested. Now, we need to think, you know, what happens when we go down this path, and how can we design our conversation in a way that is respective of their time, but also gathers some details about when we should call them back, or perhaps gathers those essential informations, particularly contact information, in which we should call them back on or reach out to them in place of a call. And we're going to collect the number as well as the email in conjunction with their preferred callback time. So our prompt here, we'll leave the first message blank. Our prompt here is going to be, if they're too busy now, we're going to say, I understand you're busy. Would it be better to schedule a specific time for us to talk? Okay, and we'll say, I'd be happy to follow up when timing is better for, and we're just going to give it a blanket prompt here on exactly what it should say. Now the cool thing here we're going to add here, and again, we're not going to change any model, voice, or transcription settings just yet. The cool thing here we can start to employ is extracting some variables. So down the bottom here we can, oh, and looks like my face is in the way. So down the bottom here we can hit add variable. What we'll do is we'll need to extract the callback time, their preferred callback time. So we can edit there, and we'll call this callback time. Cool. And we'll add a description. So when they prefer to be contacted or called back. Simple. And we can go ahead and hit save there, save up the top here. So now we have a path in which they've said they're too busy, and we're collecting relevant information which gives an indication on when they won't be busy. Now, we cannot end it here. They need to respond to that question, preferably with a callback time. So what do we respond with when they've given a callback? We want to collect either their email or number, or get some indication of their contact medium preference. So we can add another node here, conversation, and we'll add the condition here that the user responded with their preferred time. Now, if they responded with their preferred time, what we want to do is collect their preferred contact method. So our prompt here is going to be collect contact method, give it a conversation example, and what preferred contact method did you want us to reach out on? Email or your mobile? Cool. I cannot spell today, guys. Now we can go down the bottom here and we'll do some variable extraction, and we'll do contact underscore preference. And this description is going to be their preferred contact method. Go ahead and hit save on that one. Save at the top here. Now they're either going to respond with one of two things really. And that's going to be they give the number, or they're going to say my preferred contact method is email. So we're capturing a conversation response like based on two user responses or conversational pathways. So here, let's add one conversation node, two conversation node. Path one, we can say user mentioned email as their preferred contact method, and user said or mentioned mobile number as their preferred contact method. So we have two conditions in which this conversational node up here can lead to. Now we need to collect both their phone number as well as their email in an appropriate way. Collect their email address, wait for their complete response, and then ask for the spelling, firming it back to them. And we'll give like a small example here. So just to confirm, that was, let's give my email, for example, at talk-ai.au. Ensure you'll reach out to them. Cool. Now for the transcription here, we will change. So the transcription setting, we're going to change here. We're going to use smart formatting as well as numerals. We may need numerals here, dependent on if that email address has any numerals in it. Model here, we're going to increase to Nova 3, a bit more robust. We're also going to add another extract variable, add variable, contact underscore email, contact email address, e.g. something like that. We'll give it an example here. Hit save, good to go. Now we're going to do the same thing. We'll just copy this over here in our mobile phone one. So ask for their mobile, wait for their complete response, and we won't need to spell it. Like, we're pretty good with numbers now in terms of transcription. What we can also do is, if we know their number already, it wouldn't really make sense to ask it again, and they may just say the one you're calling me on. So I think it may be better if we ask first, ask if the one you're calling on, and we can denote customer with double curly braces dot number. So this will pass in the customer's number as a variable that we can use, is correct. If so, ensure you'll reach back out to them at their preferred time. If not, so what if they want to get contacted on a different number? Ask for their preferred phone number, wait for the user to speak or finish speaking their phone number. Cool. And again here, we're going to use an extract variable, and that's going to be simply add variable, edit contact number. And then this, their preferred contact number. I'll give an example here, 0473. Okay, we can hit save on that. Now we've mapped out starting to map out a lengthy conversation, and we still got a bunch of paths to go. So when we've collected either their name, their number or their email, we're good to go. We can end that conversation. We don't want to take up too much of their time. So what we can do here is we're going to add a node, end call, and we'll drag that down here, and we'll drag these paths. Cool. And all we have to do here is just map these condition. User gave their contact email, and we can say user gave their contact number. Now we've mapped out an entire conversation based off one user response, and you can see how complex conversations can begin, and why something like workflows is such a powerful tool to be able to accurately route a conversation and respond in specific ways. This is something you can do with an agent and a system prompt, but it ends up becoming quite lengthy in terms of the prompt itself. With a system prompt, you don't have as much control over each nodes or sections of that conversation as compared to building out a workflow like this. I won't call it now because I want to get through this conversational pathway, but we'll call it at the end and make sure everything is as needed. Now, we're going to build out this second path, right? So what happens if the user, and we'll drag this over here, just ends the call abruptly? So what we can do is drag this introduction node to the end call node, and we'll specify a condition: user was not interested or wants to end the call. Hit save on that bad boy. And now we have 2 of 3 responses generally that we're accounting for here in this workflow. Now what we need to do is add out the main one. So what if a user is interested and we want to conduct this lead qualification? So this is going to be a bit more lengthy and a bit more detailed in asking those questions. We need to add our third pathway and the condition in which it should go down this node. What we're going to say is the user agreed to a chat, showed interest in learning some more, and then give it some example responses. So we can say specifically here, user agreed to chat and shows interest in learning more. And then we can say, e.g., user responds with sure, yep, okay. And we can sort of add out a bunch here, but I'll just leave it at those 3. And actually what we can say, or any affirmative response. So we have our condition in which we go down this node, which is our optimal path. And now we're going to conduct our needs discovery, trying to identify those pain points to lead down a qualification flow. So how we uncover pain points within a user over the phone is we'll just ask them a series of questions that are in line with what our business and our services can help with. And this will be very specific to your business, put simply. So for this business, we want to conduct this needs discovery by asking, 1, what is their business and what industry they're in, what current systems and procedures they use. 3, what's their biggest challenges with their current approach. And 4, how have these challenges affected their business. And then 5, sort of any previous solutions that they may have tried. This gives us insight into all the leads we're calling. So let's assume that 40% of leads go down this path, and only 10% of those are going to be fully qualified. So about 4 of them. The rest, we still want to uncover some of their needs and challenges when it comes to how aligned our target market or our leads that we're calling is to our current service offering. And by conducting these needs discovery, we're able to gather so much insight, which we're going to add back to the CRM at a later stage than if we were just to lead straight into these qualifying questions. So here, to save a bit of time, I'm just going to paste in a prompt that I already have, and put simply, conduct need discovery by asking about 1, their business and industry, 2, current systems and procedures, 3, biggest challenges, 4, how it affected them, 5, previous solutions. Asking 1 question at a time, listen actively, and acknowledge their responses, keeping our responses under 30 words unless we're providing actual valuable information. Our model settings here, we're going to change this to 4.1. So and will increase our latency, but it's going to be a bit more solid in terms of contextual understanding and asking these questions. We're also going to extract all these variables. So all these questions we're asking, we want to extract. So let's go ahead and add those. So extract variables, we'll add variable. Let's call industry. This is going to be the user's industry or business type. This can be a string value, and I'll note this here. We can change the type of variables we're collecting here as string, number, boolean, or integers. These are all going to be string values. We'll hit save on that one. We'll add a new variable. So industry, current systems and procedures. We want to use that. Current system, the user's current systems or procedures. It's actually processes they use. Save that one. We'll add a variable, edit that, and we're going to call this pain points. And this will envelop sort of this third question. The user's challenges with current systems and procedures. I literally cannot spell anymore because of the ChatGPT. Processes, I keep getting that wrong. Save, and then finally we'll try and wrap this pain points variable as question 3 and 4. Users challenges and how it has affected their business. Save that, and then this final one we'll do previous solutions, right? So this will give us insight into potential competitors. Cool. So we have now 4 variables that we're collecting in this conversational node. And this is where it starts to get a bit complex, and you can start to have so many branches of a conversation mapped out. Because what if a user answers one question but doesn't answer the other? What if they answer 2 questions but not 3 and 4? What if they're vague, ambiguous here? What if they answer all questions? What if they have, no pain points and things like that? And without getting overwhelmed, there's a few different conversational pathways in which we can go down based on the response to this. To keep things simple, we're going to have 2 paths. So 1, we've got sufficient information. And remember, this is just a needs discovery, so they're not pertinent questions to our qualifying process, although they do matter. Or 2, insufficient information was gathered about their business, and we don't really have anything to go off of to qualify that lead. So 2 conversational pathways we need to map out off this third branch. You can see how big it's gonna get. So we'll add a node here, and we'll add a node here, delete this, and we'll just drag. And we'll say for this first node, this is going to be our ideal, they've responded. So sufficient information gathered, and we'll copy that, paste insufficient. Now, what happens if we did get insufficient information? Put simply, we are going to try and pry deeper into their business and confirm the specific industry and primary pain points. So if they don't want to answer all those questions here, or they've provided insufficient information, we at least want to know their business and their pain point. I'm going to save a bit of time here and paste in a prompt. Pry deeper into their business and confirm their specific industry and primary pain points for the current systems and processes they have in place. And here we're going to use variables industry and pain points as extracting variables here. So we can add a variable, edit industry, the users, save that, just get the description, the user's industry or business type down the bottom here, and we'll use that here, save that. Then we'll get the pain point one and add variable. There we go. So we're going to try and pry deeper. And based off the back of this, they're either going to be ambiguous again, where we don't have sufficient information again, or they're going to provide that sufficient information. And then we can go down this conversational pathway. So we can drag this out to here. And what we can do, we can add a new conversational node. And this is going to be collecting unqualified leads, and drag this down there. So it's getting pretty lengthy now, guys. If they eventually responded to this, gave information about their business, we're just going to copy this. That's our condition to go down that pathway, and we'll copy the insufficient side of things. So they were still ambiguous, right? What we need to do here is we need to add an unqualified node. So I'm just going to bring it back out here to put things on track again. We have an introduction where we're seeing if we can help a business increase their efficiency by custom software solutions. There's going to be 3 outcomes to that first question. Busy, which we've accounted for, where we're collecting their name or number. Email or number, then collecting that adequately, ending the call. And then we're accounting for where a user is not interested or wants to end the call immediately, where we're ending that call. And then finally, our optimal path, where the user agreed to chat and showed interest in learning. And we're going to first conduct a needs discovery, collecting some variables there. A user is either going to give sufficient information, in which we'll lead into the qualifying questions, or they're going to give insufficient information. And when they give insufficient information, we're going to try and pry deeper into their business and pain points as a minimum information that we need to lead into the qualifying criteria. So if they respond to this with that information, then we'll go down into qualifying criteria. If they don't, we need to map out something for unqualified leads. And eventually, this node is going to tie into this based on that response as well. So here, I'm going to enter in a prompt, and we're going to say for unqualified lead, say based on what you've shared, it sounds like our solutions might not be the best fit for your current needs. We typically work best with companies that mention relevant ideal customer criteria, which we're going to pull from the global prompt. I won't suggest moving forward, but if your situation change, especially in regarding to qualifying factors, which we've also got in the global prompt, please reach out. Be honest but respectful. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to save that. We need to map out for qualified leads, obviously now, and this is taking a while. So I did mention this is going to be a big one, and we've still got a bunch to go, but this is going to be a complete AI voice agent using the new workflows that can qualify a lead accurately and send appropriate details back to a CRM that a lot of people use. So I'm going to save again a bit of time here, and we're going to use this prompt to assess now our qualifying criteria. So we're going to assess qualification by asking 1 about the timeline for implementing a solution, budget allocation, who else would be involved in the evaluation, how would they measure success, and we're going to say listen for indicators that they meet our ideal customer profile. So we're going to say 10 plus employees, 5 mil revenue, growth challenges, and willingness to invest, processes improvement, extract variables as users provide additional information. And then we're going to say user is not qualified if their timeline is significantly long or short, e.g. needing something within a few weeks, or looking to implement it later, e.g. over 6 months. A user is not qualified if their budget is below 1,000. A user is also not qualified if they have a headcount of less than 10 staff. So adding sort of those qualifying criterion, and specifically we're going to ask about timeline, budget allocation, who else would be involved in evaluation, for how they would measure success. And what we need to do here is extract those variables. So we're going to add variables, and simply we're going to get their timeline. So timeline, so here, their timeline for implementing a solution, save, add a variable, and we're going to say their budget status, information about their budget allocation or financial capacity, save. We'll add a variable, and we're going to do decision makers as well, and we're going to say who else is involved in the decision making process, save, add a variable, edit that, and then finally success criteria. And this is going to be a really robust system that's getting a lot of valuable information. So I encourage you guys, when you're building out your own for your business, is asking where naturally you would like to have some information pulled back into your CRM, you know, when you're calling your leads. So we have extracting our variables quite good. Now from here, there's going to be another 3 sort of outcomes. One is going to be that they're just unqualified, so we can just drag that there. So they didn't meet our ideal customer profile, too small, no budget, no authority, no clear need, or very long, short timelines. So we've accounted for one. Now look how beefy this is getting. Now we need to account for, they've met the qualifying criteria. They have a timeline within, 3 to 6 months. They've got a budget over $1,000. They are one of the decision makers, and they've accurately defined how they would measure success when it comes to custom software implementation that helps increase their current systems and processes efficiency. There's another pathway which you typically encounter, and that's that they want to implement something later down the line. And there may be another bunch of pathways, but for the sake of timeliness and this video, it's already going to be very long. We're just going to account for those 3 outcomes. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add a conversation node here, and we're going to add a conversation node here. So based on this qualifying block, we're going to have 3 outcomes: unqualified, bad timing, qualified. So let's map out the bad timing first. And again, we're going to use prompt already have just to save a bit of time here, but you get the idea in how I'm writing this out. So for users needing nurturing, say it sounds like timing might not be ideal right now. Would it be helpful if I sent you some information about how we've helped similar businesses in your industry? Then perhaps we could reconnect in their appropriate time frame, get their email, set expectations for follow-up. What we could do here is we could also set some variables where we're going to get their contact email again and follow-up time frame. Now, hypothetically, if we were to redesign this in a way that could be used in multiple sort of main branches, we could just reconnect that back up to here. But we're not going to do that. We're going to reset their preferred contact time. So we're going to extract variables there, and we can say follow-up timeline, and this is going to be when they would like to be contacted. Again, save that variable, add variable, and then we're going to say contact email, users email address for nurturing materials. Cool. Hit save on that bad boy. Now we'll leave that for now. What we're also going to do is hit this 3rd block, which is going to be our optimal block. And this is going to be qualified users based on our conversation. I think it would be valuable to have you speak with, and we can just name myself here, who specializes in the relevant area. They can provide a more tailored overview of how we could help with the specific challenges they mention. Would you be available for a 30-minute call this week? Suggest specific times and get their contact information. What we're also going to do here is we're going to pass in a now variable, which gives the now time, and we'll just block that out in Markdown. For qualified users, we're going to do that. Would you be available time for a 30-minute meeting? Suggest specific times using current time as reference and get their contact information. Cool. Now, again, we're going to have to extract their contact email or their mobile or something like that, and their preferred meeting time. So we can go variable, again, contact email, users preferred contact email, and we're going to do preferred meeting time. Going to be the user's preferred time for a sales meeting. Okay, so we hit save on that. Now we're going to match these 2 conditions to go to each specific block. For the bad timing, we're going to say user has potential, but timing isn't right, budget unclear or too low, needs more information before moving in. And then our qualifying path is going to be user met qualification criteria, has a timeline within 3 to 6 months, budget capacity, e.g. over 1,000, decision authority or influence and clear need for our solution. Let's go ahead and hit save on that bad boy. Now we can end the calls. So when we have collected these contacts informations in both, want to line this up, don't mind me, drag this down. Now we can just end these conversations, and we can continue adding to these flows, but I think we've shown enough in terms of these workflows to, start testing these. So the only final things we need to do is we'll add a sort of a global prompt as well to transfer the call if they ask for a human. But as far as these Paths go, we're going to say for this bad timing one, email obtained and follow-up expectation sent. And then for our qualified one, we're going to say meeting schedule and contact information obtained. And then for our totally unqualified one, they can just respond or say whatever. So we can say user responded or acknowledged. Hit save on that. All these are going to lead down to ending the call. Conversation has wrapped up, and then we can use sort of the contents of the conversation we had just had to qualify and map the collected variables to our HubSpot contact records. So now we sort of need to use conversation that we get via an end of call report to determine what path they went down and the associated variables with that, and how we can start to map them with our HubSpot contact records. Before we do that, one final thing, just to showcase a bit more of what workflows can do, is we're going to add a node. What this is going to be is a conversation node, and we're actually going to make this a global node, and we're going to say confirm that user wants to speak to a human and ask them what they would like to speak about, e.g. a user has specifically asked for a human. So this is going to be a global node, which whenever this is triggered, like whenever a human says this node will be triggered, and you can hit save on that, and we'll add an additional node, which is going to be transfer call. And we can say if the user acknowledged or said yes, something of that nature, then we're going to transfer the call. So transferring the call, we can have two different destination types, and that's going to be a DID or a SIP. And if you're connecting to a SIP URL, you'll have to put that address in there. Also have a transfer plan, any associated messages. But for this one, we're just going to do a phone number, and we're going to enforce E164 format, and we can just put that down. We can also specify extensions, caller IDs, messages to the customer. And what I'll just say is I will transfer call now, if that's okay. Get the user to respond to a transfer call request, because sometimes when you just blindly transfer, it'll invoke when the user responds to like the function call, which is sort of weird. And then we'll just give it a blanket description, use this function when the user explicitly asks to speak to a human. We're going to use blind transfer here. Go ahead and save that. Look at this. We have a bunch of nodes here that accurately sort of route a conversation appropriately. Far better than using, in my opinion, just a simple prompt. And don't get me wrong, you can definitely build out something like this with a simple prompt. But workflows are going to give you much more customizability and control over specific directions in which you want your conversation to go down, based on specific user responses. So a really cool feature here. And what we're going to do now is, now that we've mapped this all out, we're going to do some testing, and we may as well do some testing while sending some data back to n8n. That's a good allocation of time, I think. How we're going to do some testing, we're going to head back over to the side hand bar here under the three dots, and you want to go under your org settings. And under our server URL is where we want to set an n8n automation, specifically a webhook, to receive some of these test events. And specifically, we want to start to receive end of call reporting based on when a workflow was executed, or based on that conversation. So here, just quickly, we can use this test URL in our Vapi server URL, paste that in. Go ahead and hit save, and let's go back into our workflow, and we're going to copy this ID also. And what we're going to do is head back to our initial scenario where we're actually distributing a call, head back into the HTTP request node. Remember, we have the trigger, getting the contact, checking, distributing that call. Now we can design a payload workflow ID like so, and pasting in that workflow ID. So the schema here is going to be very specific, and I'm going to pull that up in a second. We need to add the workflow ID and those variables. Remember, we're using customer name and customer number also. So we need to be able to add those variables so that we can use them in conversation. So if we don't know how to construct this, we can head back over to the Vapi dashboard, and what we could do is look at Vapi docs. We can look at Vapi and we can understand how to distribute a call using some custom properties. And I reload that, looks a bit broken. So we're going to hit try it. And if you're ever wondering how to construct a payload to make calls or create an assistant, the docs here are going to be quite good. And we know here we're not using an assistant, so to speak, but we're actually using a workflow ID. So we're using a workflow ID, and we're going to use workflow overrides with some values here. We're also going to use customer, and we're going to use their customer number, customer name, and we also need to include our phone number ID to actually make these calls. So this is going to be our payload schema that we can copy this, head to n8n, and let's just clean that up a bit. Cool. And we know our workflow ID that we can copy here, put into that. We'll leave overrides for now. We know our customer number, and we know our customer name. Now we need a phone number ID. So how are we actually going to distribute calls using this workflow? So we're going to have to import a number, and we'll just do that now. And we're going to use a free Vapi number in this case. So head over to phone numbers. We're going to create a phone number, free Vapi number, and we could just use 516 or something like that. When you've got the ID, we'll paste that in like so. And now we just need to populate these number and name variables. If I hit save on that, and we actually need to change this into an expression. So coming back into the HTTP request expression. Now, you can actually parse some of these details, number and name, that we got from our HubSpot get contact, and we'll just search for our number here. So we're going to use the phone value here and making sure it's in that E164 format. And we're going to use the name. So wherever we had first name, I'm going to use that name here. Now customer.name, which we've spec'd in our workflow, is going to be used as whatever first name that we're calling. Hit save. Now we'll distribute a call using our workflow, and make sure that we have our bearer API key in here. I'm going to paste that in. Now we can distribute a call using that number that we had just imported, using our workflow that we had just created as well. And we can test, how this sounds and start to use the results of that call, end of call side, to map out how to get those details back into HubSpot. I'm jumping around a bit, but there's a lot of complexity here in terms of having the correct data to distribute calls to, and how you structure your schema to the call's endpoint to make that call with a workflow, and how you set your webhook organization side, as workflows specifically doesn't have a server URL you can set, and we're going to have to filter out different event types that hit our server URL, and collect that end of call report using that workflow ID to assess, based on the extracted variables, how qualified a lead was. So what branch did they go down? And that's where it's going to get tricky. And quite honestly, there's a lot more to go through, but this is what it takes in terms of creating real and functional assistants that integrate with real business software like HubSpot. So to do a bit of an interlude here, what we've done so far is we've connected two authentication types with HubSpot. So one for the trigger node, in which listens to events coming in from our HubSpot, specifically when a new contact is created. Two, we've authenticated with a normal HubSpot node, and this is going to allow us to append contacts when we know they're qualified or unqualified, or we reach voicemail or something like that. Thirdly, we've created our lead qualification assistant using Vapi's new workflows, which encompasses a lot of different conversational pathways and a lot of different routes based on a lot of different responses. So it's quite complex there. Now what we need to do is the fourth and final step is tie everything together. So how do we distribute a call using our workflow we had just created, using details that we're getting from our HubSpot trigger node? And then how do we append that contact accurately using the contents of that call? And we do that by receiving an end of call report, which contains transcripts, the variables we extracted, and all sort of details associated with the call, including whether we hit voicemail or not, or whether the call was abruptly ended or something like that, that we can start to use to map out qualified, unqualified, attempted to contact, e.g. voicemail, start building out some recall systems and stuff like that. So that's going to be third and fourth step that we're jumping into now. And we're still waiting for our free Vapi number to get authenticated. So we'll just wait for that. And then we'll distribute a call, test out the system, and start to receive some of these event logs to this webhook. Then we're going to be able to use those events to map out updating our contacts. Okay, so that number is now authenticated through. I can go ahead and distribute a call to my contact, and we can map out properly these two error and success paths. And then we can start to receive some webhook test events. We're going to get a stream of events to our organization server URL. I'm actually going to click into the production URL and I'll hit live on that. And I'm going to go back into my server URL in Vapi and update that. Then we're going to distribute a call and we're going to check the execution logs n8n side to find an end of call report. And then we'll be able to filter out those. But firstly, we want to ensure that this works. Secondly, we can start to remap all the values based on the call, and you'll be able to hear the call through my computer on how our workflow sounds. So I'm going to quickly update the organization server URL. So going to edit that. Hit save. Now we're going to use our trigger from that contact test workflow.
Hello, Jonas. This is Morgan from Growth Partners. How are you today?
I'm good, Morgan. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. We help businesses improve their operational efficiency through custom software solutions. Do you have a few minutes to chat about how we might be able to help your business?
I'm actually pretty busy at the moment. Can we do this another time?
I understand you're busy. Would it be better to schedule a specific time for us to talk? I'd be happy to follow up when timing is better for you. When would be a good time for us to reconnect? What works best for you?
Let's do next Wednesday, 12 p.m.
Great. Next Wednesday at 12 p.m. works perfectly. And what's your preferred contact method for that? Email or your mobile?
Email's my preferred contact method, yes.
Got it. Emails work best for you. Could you please share your email address with me? I'll make sure to confirm it back to you for accuracy.
Yeah, it's jonas@talkai.au.
Thank you, Jonas. Just to confirm, that's jonas@talkai.au, correct?
That is correct. Cool. So you heard the flow in our user was busy collecting an email address. Now we should be getting server events here, but it looks like it hasn't populated Vapi side. But we know the call was successful, and we're just going to amend this to actually use the email to assert that contact of which we collected in, if I scroll down here, and this is going to be quite long, so let's use the 3 nodes back, HubSpot trigger, use a schema of that. Looks like I'm just going to collapse this, collapse that, and we're going to be able to use the email. So we can use know the email and proproperties. So we're going to use this value instead to be able to assert that contact, save that, and we're going to use that as well on this side. That's going to be an expression as well. And now don't just want to update that, but we want to update properties as well, specifically lead status to in progress. All right, so that call was in progress, and we're going to do the same here. Again, searching up lead status, name or ID, and that's going to be attempted to contact. Because on fail of this HTTP request, we want to append our contact, and you'll see that new one got created because that was just a blank create contact. I'm just going to delete that, and I'm going to reset the server URL because it's not populating in here, so I'm going to have to do another call anyway. But at least we know our workflow works. There was an abrupt sort of goodbye there, which we can map out a bit more. Perhaps on this node side, we have to, user gave their contact email, and we have to, give a goodbye message a bit more properly. So we'll say, thanks for your time. I'll let you go. So giving it an actual message, but we know, at least in that conversation, I said I was busy, got that preferred time, and got our preferred contact method. That was email. It spelled it back right. Gave my email and ended that time. Sorry, the call. So that path works fine. We can test this other path, this abrupt call, and obviously these paths down here. So a bit of manual testing when it comes to this stuff. What I just want to confirm is this server URL. Okay, this may take a bit to sort of populate Vapi's side. So bear with me here. Now I'm going to distribute another call just to ensure this is working.
Hello, Jonas. This is Morgan from Growth Partners.
Hey.
We help businesses improve their operational efficiency through custom software solutions. Do you have a few minutes to chat about how we might be able to help your business?
Sure.
Great. Can you tell me a bit about your business and the industry you're in?
Yeah, so I'm in the marketing industry. We run a marketing agency. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. What systems or processes are you currently using to manage your agency's operations?
Yeah, we use a suite of different tools, mainly Monday.com, and we're trying to build our own custom CRM. Monday.com's pretty slow and inefficient.
Got it. What challenges are you facing with Monday.com or your current setup that's driving the need for a custom solution?
Yeah, so it's a bit slow, expensive, and it doesn't offer all the stuff that we need.
I see. And how do these challenges impact your agency's operations or bottom line? For example, does it affect productivity, client delivery, or costs?
Yeah, I would say all of the above, cost, productivity, and, efficiency.
Got it. Growth Partners can definitely help with that. We have solutions like Operations OS for workflow automation and Customer Connect for client relationship management. For instance, we helped a similar marketing agency streamline their processes, which boosted their productivity by 30%. Our key differentiators include customization, seamless integration, and dedicated implementation support. Does this sound like something that could benefit your agency?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great to hear. Can you tell me about your timeline for implementing a solution? Are you looking to do this within the next few months?
Yeah, I'd say within the next 3 months.
Perfect. And have you already allocated a budget for this, or do you have an idea of what you'd like to invest in a solution?
Yeah, we have.
Also, who else is involved in the...
Yeah, we have. We've got a budget allocated $10,000 to $20,000. Yeah.
Great. And who else would be involved in evaluating or making the decision on the solution? Would you be available for a 30-minute call this week? I can suggest some specific times. How about Wednesday at 2 p.m. or Thursday at 11 a.m.? Do either of those work for you? And could I get your email address to send you the meeting details?
Yeah, Wednesday
Also,
Wednesday at 11 a.m. works. My email is jonas@talkai.au.
thank you for taking the time to chat today. Have a great day.
Awesome, thanks. So yeah, the endings there probably could be handled a bit better, but it ran through the conversation accurately to a degree. Could do with some refinement, that's for sure. We need to get that server event now, so we're just gonna copy that end of call report here. What we'll do is we'll copy this to the editor. This will allow us to play with the values that we had got from the end of call report. And what we're going to be looking for specifically here is, you can see end of call report here. We have a summary. We're going to be looking for those variables that have been abstracted during that conversation. So we have our entire transcript here as well. But yeah, here's going to be a spit out of our entire variables located near the bottom. So we've got industry, company size, pain points, current systems, monday.com, custom development, timeline, 3 months, budget, decision makers, unknown. I didn't actually answer that. Increased productivity, efficiency, cost savings, contact email, preferred meeting time. So we're now able to build out a pathway for a qualified lead. But first, what we should do is we're going to add an if statement. So we want to say if this message type is equal to end of call reports, then we want to continue. What we're going to do here is we're going to look up HubSpot and we're going to look for search contacts, and we're just going to return 1 because there's only going to be 1 contact that we can append properly. And we'll add a filter group here. So property name or ID is equal to X. So specifically here, we want the email. So we want the email here. We want the phone number to equal the phone number that we had got in the end of call report. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to say phone number here is going to be equal to, and we're going to find that here. So you'll see customer number or call number, phone number, customer number. We can use the customer number equal to that. And this is going to spit out our record that's in Airtable. And you'll see our 1 item there. We now have the contact ID that we can append this record to. Now we need to do some voicemail, qualification handling, and everything like that. So we can do an if statement, and we're going to do voicemail. We're going to start to test if this call or end of call report was hitting voicemail, or was it answered, or was it a failed call? So that's where it gets a little tricky. So think of this, we have end of call, checking if it is an end of call. We're going to get that contact, and now we're going to check if that call was actually ran through the entirety of the conversation or it was actually answered. And how we're going to determine whether a call was answered or not is by using a bunch of conditionals. All right, so you'll notice here, if we search up ended reason, you'll see assistant ended the call. There's about 20 different ended reasons that we get from an end of call report. An assistant ended the call indicates to us that the user had picked up, and I'll tell you why. A call will, based on this ended reason tag, a call will be a voicemail if it is equal to customer did not answer, assistant error, pipeline error, all the pipeline errors, phone call provider, WebSocket closed, Twilio failed to connect call, unknown errors, voicemail, or leave message in terms of the transcript. So what we're going to do here is, let's assume the true path is an answered call. So using this ended reason, we're able to determine that if ended reason is not equal to a bunch of those conditions, then we know it's answered. So, and like those conditions are customer did not answer. We'll have to add another one, and we'll copy that in. Let's just add a few here. We could use like an AI assistant to determine voicemail based off a transcript, but we want to do this systematically and reliably. And unfortunately, it's just a manual process of disqualifying certain conditions and using these if statements to do so. So we know a call is answered if our ended reason is not equal to customer did not answer, and it's not equal to assistant error. And let me just change all these. Not equal to, not equal to, not equal to, not equal to. So customer, a call has been answered if it's not equal to customer did not answer, and it's not equal to assistant error, and it's not equal to pipeline dash error dash star, and it's not equal to pipeline error first message failed. And I've got already the list of all these things that would indicate to us that it was answered. So we're sort of discounting all these. Pipeline dash no available dash LLM model, and it's not equal to phone call provider closed WebSocket, and we'll have to add a few more here. Let's add here, bang, and we're just going to paste in that ended reason, guys. Change this to not equal. And if you really want, like, you can use an AI assistant to just return voicemail yes or no based on the transcript input. But this is a more reliable and programmatic way of doing it. We can also do and not equal to Twilio failed, and not equal to unknown error, and ended reason does, we're going to actually change this to does not contain voicemail. And we'll also do something to just sort of capture the transcript instead. So we'll change this to does not contain, and we're not going to use the ended reason tag here. Instead, we're going to use transcript. So if the transcript does not contain leave a message and the ended reason does not contain voicemail, so all of those would discount a call against an answered and voicemail based call. So if we're true, everyone, then we can go on to our 3 paths of the conversation. So user was busy, a user abruptly ended the call, didn't want to go through, and a user went through the qualifying questions, and there's going to be a bunch of filters off that. Like, this is how complex outbound systems can get to actually create reliable systems. And there's not much on YouTube about how to do this stuff. I had to learn all this through trial and error, and I've done this. I've created hundreds of agents by now, and a lot of those outbound, and have gone through pains of trying to determine qualified leads against unqualified leads. So, okay, let's get back on track here. So this is going to determine answered calls, and we'll put an if in here as well. So up the top here is going to be answered. The false route is going to be checking voicemail against a failed call as well. There's going to be 3 outcomes of a call: telephony side, answered, voicemail, or failed. So we'll do the voicemail side of things, and this is going to be a similar approach to using conditions based on the ended reason to check a voicemail against a failed call. So here what we can do is we're going to use the ended reason. We can just copy that. So we're going to do ended reason is equal to now voicemail, or, so we're going to use ors here, or ended reason is equal to customer busy, or ended reason is equal to customer did not answer. So this is indicating to us voicemail, or ended reason is equal to customer ended call. Okay, so we got 4 conditionals there, and that'll, if true, indicate we hit voicemail, and then we can recall or tag that. If false, it means it was a failed lead, okay, or a failed call perhaps. And what we can do now down the false path is we can just do like a HubSpot create or update a contact. And because we've searched that contact there, we can use the ID or email to append that contact. And we want to change the lead status to attempted to contact. So this is going to be a failed call. So I'll rename that failed. And we want to sort of do the same. And this video is already long enough. So I've done a video also on how to do recall systems with outbound sales. Do check that out. I did plan to go through that in this video, but it's already going to be a huge video. So what we're going to do is just going to tag for failed, voicemail, and qualified. And I recommend checking out my video on the sales system where I use n8n, and you can plug that in. So if that's true, we know it's voicemail. So this looks very similar to our conversational pathway. And we'll test that. Oh, what's going on here? Let's put in some placeholder emails just so it doesn't throw an error, and we can actually test this workflow and populate those. Okay, save that bad boy. Bang. Okay, so that call was answered, so it went up the correct path. And you can see we had a true branch. So all these were met, therefore is true. If any one of these got pinged, it would hit down the false branch and then head to check voicemail against fail. But because that was the call we just had, we're able to now obviously check if it's qualified or not. I hope everyone's following along. If you're not, just leave a comment below on what you need help with. That's fine. Okay, so what we can check here against qualified, unqualified is some of these details coming from the webhook. Specifically, and I might actually just get the email variable here. So I'm going to copy that, guys, and we'll come down here and use that expression. To update that contact. Yeah, cool. So we need to check for something in our webhook that would indicate to us that they were qualified or not. Okay, so I had a little think on how we can determine a qualified lead against a semi-qualified lead and an unqualified lead. Now, thinking back to our nodes and the specific variables we are extracting, we know bad timing, e.g. a semi-qualified lead, we're extracting specifically, if I just move my face here, we're extracting follow-up time frame. A qualified lead, we're extracting that meeting time, preferred meeting time. And then an unqualified lead, we're not actually extracting anything. So what I mean by this is we can check using an if statement if X variable exists or X variable is not empty. We can determine qualified lead, semi, and unqualified lead. And I'll show you exactly what I mean now. So back over in n8n, I've just put in that preferred meeting time variable, and we're checking the condition exists. So if this actually exists, we know they have gone down this path. The qualified handoff, that is. So in saying that, if that exists, that's going to be true. We can now add a HubSpot node that's going to be create or update a contact. If it doesn't exist, we should check again using another if. Let's test that step. We should check again if follow-up, specifically the follow-up time frame exists. If that doesn't exist, then we know they're unqualified, right? And then we got to check if that doesn't exist, we have some of the variables that would indicate to us that they asked for a callback, right? Okay, yeah, this is making sense. So, okay, yeah, that's how we'll do it. So we've enabled this contact, and let's just get the email variable in there, and we can add the lead status, and we'll change that to open deal, e.g. qualified. So we'll save that. Now I'm just going to switch this out. Does not exist. Test that step. That went down. False branch. Test step. And we'll switch that back just so we have some data to work with. Cool. Okay, so now we need to check semi-qualified against unqualified. And how we'll do that is we're going to use the same theory we just did here, checking if those variables existed, right? And because they don't exist and we're using the data from our qualified lead, we're going to have to map this manually. So expression here in terms of the variables, if I can just find them. So instead of preferred meeting time, it's going to be we're checking for follow-up time frame. That's what we're going to be checking for here. So instead of preferred meeting time, it's going to be follow-up time frame. Now this isn't going to exist here. Doesn't exist, so it's down the false branch. I changed the wrong one actually. So Command Z a few of those. Preferred meeting time should be up here. My bad, guys. And then this is going to be our follow-up time frame. And then that is going to be exist. So if that does exist, then we know it's semi-qualified. We can duplicate this. We know that's going to be semi-qualified, and instead it's just going to be bad timing, like it was bad timing for them. Okay. And that's going to be similar to email, I guess. So perhaps we want it to be a bit more specific. And this is where we'll start to add contact properties HubSpot side. Okay. So if it's false, we now know it's either completely unqualified, or they requested a callback, or they just abruptly hung up. So we're going to need another if node, and a lot of logic getting mapped out here. So this we're going to copy, and we're going to say if exists, and instead of follow-up time frame, if we just go back here, it's going to be contact preference, and I'll move my head just to, it's going to be contact preference or contact number. And I just need to make sure that contact email, yeah, they're all pretty specific. So we're going to check if contact preference and contact number exists, then we know that they wanted to be called back at a specific time. All right. So we can say, and we can get their contact number, come back here, say dot contact number, copy that, and then we'll use or contact, and that other one was preference. And I just need to make sure exactly I've got the spelling. Yep. And I'll explain, guys, my thinking behind this in just a moment. So if that exists, or that exists, so contact number or contact preference exists, we know they wanted a call back. So if that's true, we'll duplicate this, and that's going to be the exact same. So that's going to be bad timing as well. If it doesn't exist, they abruptly ended the call. So we can do duplicate here, and only that's going to be unqualified, right? So let's tidy up this workflow a bit and explain it. So what we're doing here is we're polling for end of call reports. End of call reports are going to contain those variables we extracted during the conversation, as well as transcripts, recording URLs, everything we need. And specifically, how we're going to detect voicemail against an answered call and a failed call is as the following. So if that ended reason is not equal to any of these, we know it's a voicemail or a failed call. Oh, sorry. If it's not equal, then we know it's answered. If it does equal one of those, we need to poll that against voicemail and failed calls. So we're saying if the ended reason then equal to one of these, we know it's a voicemail, and we got this voicemail. If it's not, it's a failed call. Up on the true path in which a call was answered, we're going to check if our preferred meeting time existed, that variable we extracted. And the only way we're able to extract that variable is if they go down and complete the qualification criteria. We're only going to suggest that meeting time if they're qualified. So if that exists, we'll go up the true path and they're qualified. That's done. If it doesn't exist, we want to check, does that follow-up time frame exist? And the follow-up time frame is suggested to the user in which they had potential, but timing isn't right, budget was unclear, too low, or needs more information before moving forward. That's only going to exist if they go through this path, right? And if that exists, we'll tag for bad timing. If it doesn't exist, we're going to check if the contact number or the contact preference exists now. If those exist, we know that they went down this side of the conversational pathway. And we're going to update with, again, bad timing. If it doesn't exist, it must fall outside of all these, e.g. they didn't answer any of these questions really, so they didn't get to qualifying. They didn't go through the reschedule call path, so they're unqualified, either abruptly ending the call or not really taking it seriously in terms of the qualifying questions and things like that. So that's how we're accounting for each of these outcomes, HubSpot side. And we're not using any AI logic here to determine qualification. We're doing this all programmatically. This will be much more reliable than if you were to just rely on an AI assistant, in my personal opinion, and you have a bit more control this way. Now what we need to do is we got to test all these different pathways. I'm going to go through and not bore you with a bunch of these calls. I'm going to go through each pathway myself and ensure that everything's updating, and you'll be able to see if they're updating correctly. I'll cut in part of the conversation so you can determine that. And then that's good to go. We've successfully created a trigger to distribute calls. We've created our workflow to facilitate those calls, and we've created our back-end logic to categorize and score those calls. The last thing that we need to do is create some custom properties HubSpot side to be able to populate each contact with their preferred meeting time, the transcript, things like that. Bear with me, I'm going to go through each of these pathways, make sure that we're hitting and tagging the lead status correctly. When that's all good to go, we're going to head into contacts, and we're actually going to append our contacts so that they can include custom fields, and we'll go through that in a moment. So just bear with me while I go through each of these conversational pathways, check if we need to change anything or if the method we're using is robust enough. Okay, we're going to add a new contact, and then we'll just add a call to the queue there.
Hello, Jonas. This is Morgan from Growth Partners. How are you today?
I'm pretty busy right now. Can you call me back?
When would be the best time for me to call you back?
Next Tuesday, 2 p.m. probably.
What would be your preferred contact method? Email or your mobile?
My mobile number.
Perfect. Thanks. Just to confirm, is the number I'm calling you on now, 888-365-8681, the best number to reach you at next Tuesday, or would you prefer a different number?
Yeah, that's the best number to reach me on. So we're going to get an end of call in queue now. And should have been it. And we see, so if you heard the conversation, this is going to be down a true branch, which means bad timing. So I gave the mobile number there. If I just refresh this, Cool, bad timing. I'm going to add another contact and test all the other paths. So I'm going to speed run that a bit.
Hello, F. This is Morgan from Growth Partners. Do you have a few minutes to chat about how we might be able to help your business?
Nah, sorry, bye. Okay, so we just ended the call there, so an abrupt ending route. Now, when this end of call report comes through, we're down the bottom, perfect, that's what we need. So now, this would be unqualified. Cool. Okay, so we've tested 3 routes, that's good. Now, what we need to test is the final route, which would probably be the most complex. And that is going to be if I continue the conversation right, but I don't necessarily qualify myself. So I'm going to create one last contact just to verify that my backend logic there is appropriate. And let me go ahead.
Hello, Jonas. This is Morgan from Growth Partners. Great. Can you tell me a bit about your business and the industry you're in?
I'm in garden care. Okay. So we went through this route, but then we ended the call, so not qualified. What we're going to do is wait for that end of call reporting to come through. Perfect. There we go. So that's going down the unqualified route as well. If I reload that, unqualified, bad timing, open deal. Perfect. So the back-end logic in terms of determining qualified states is working great. I'm pretty happy with this, guys. Pretty extensive. I mean, we could obviously test this transfer call, but I'm calling in a US number, and it's a free Vapi number. They can't do international calls, so I can't really test that unless I had another US number. But that's pretty straightforward, a simple transfer call. What we're going to do now is we're going to head over to our contacts field. So just updating this lead status is likely not enough in terms of giving your team members the data that they need. So with open deals, bad timing, unqualified, and things like that, we want to add a few more properties in here that'll give us a good indication of what happened in our qualifying steps. Now, the fun part and the final part, guys. So we're going to head over to our contacts preview. What we have to do is hit this little settings button, and we can add a new property here, or we can add custom properties. So we don't want to create any properties here which HubSpot natively has that we can add. We want to create our own custom properties. Go into settings up here, and under contacts, data management on the sidebar here, you can see your contacts here. We can go to properties, and what we want to do is add a new property. So we want to create a property. What properties do we need to create? Let's think about this. We want enough information to act off of a qualified lead. So first and foremost, we want all these sort of pain point, industry, company, pain point, current status, timeline, budget, blah, blah, blah. And then we probably want preferred preferred contact time. I'm not going to collect an email because we already have that within the CRM, and we also have their number. So we also need callback time. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 new properties CRM side. And to do so, head over into your property settings, and we're going to give this a label. Now, we're just going to go through systematically here, sequentially, just one by one. So callback time, that's what we want. We'll name it exactly what we had set in there, callback _ time, when the user requested a time to, let's call this bad timing brackets. We don't really need to change anything here. It's going to be a contact object type, field type, and this is going to be a string. Single line text is really what we want. It won't be in a date format because we're not formatting that to ISO 8601 format Vapi side, so that's fine. Rules here, Don't change anything. Whoops. So let's go ahead and create that property. Now we've got a new property. Let's create another property. And this is going to be industry. Let's really collect the pertinent details here. So we want industry, pain point, current systems, company size. I don't think I want to collect. So industry, pain point, company size, and then we want timeline, budget, decision, success metrics, and preferred meeting time. Okay. So let's create that. So let's start with industry, of course. So come back here, industry. Industry. It already exists, so we might be able to use that, but I'm just going to denote it as call industry. Industry, the user is in. Field type, that's going to be single line text. We're going to create that field as well. Pain points, so pain underscore points for me. The user's pain points. I've got dyslexia. And field type, again, that's going to be a single line text field. Create that. Create property. The user's current systems. Single line text. It may be, yeah, we'll do multi-line text for this because it may be a longer response. Now we'll leave out company size. Let's go timeline. And I'm going to use actually the descriptions here in our HubSpot description. So field type, single line text for that one as well. Create property, come back. Let's do budget status. Come back, budget status. And we're going to use that description, field type, single line text. It's not going to be too long. Coming back, let's do the preferred meeting time. And we'll just add that. So I'm leaving out some things here for time's sake, but that's fine. Field type, preferred meeting time, that's going to be a single line text. And then we're going to create two more properties. No, we'll create one more property, and this is going to be call underscore summary. And this could be summary or transcript. I'm just going to do summary in this case. And this is going to be multi-line text, and we can create. Now we've got all those properties smack bang in. We'll be able to go to n8n side. And instead of running through a call, I'm going to show you assigning these properties in each outcome that we had before. So if I go back to contacts, we had the 4 outcomes, so the qualified, bad timing, and then the 2 unqualified ones. This, I ended the call. This one ended the call, but down different nodes. This one was a callback request, and this one was like a fully qualified lead. So let's think here. So average seconds. It's usually a bit longer, so that'll be our end of call report. Call abrupt ending. So we'll go to the next one. I'm just going to use data I already have here just to showcase appending contact details, right? Just thinking here, yep. And what was this one? Okay, this was our qualified lead, right? Where it appended our contact here to open deal. So we're going to open that in our editor. And this is going to allow us to amend these with a data payload that we already have without having to distribute a call. So we're going to add a property here, and we may have to assign these contacts with the properties themselves. So that's not going to be updated. So what we can do is head over to this contact or contacts in general, hit this gear icon, add property. Here they are. So we want to add call summary, call industry. Was it callback time, budget status, current systems, pain points, preferred meeting time, and yeah, that's us. So those are all the contact properties that we had custom created. So we just need to add those properties to the actual contacts object. Cool. So we just added all those. If I save that, just want to save that. Your changes were saved. N8n side, if I just refresh this page, and we need to upsert a contact. And specifically here, we want to add a property type. Here we go, custom properties. Okay, so under custom properties is what we want to add. And for a qualified lead, right, we want to add like everything. So it's going to be the budget status, the caller industry. It's going to be the call summary. It's going to be the callback time, obviously. It's going to be current systems. We're also going to be pain points. And it's also going to be preferred meeting time as well as our timeline. So for a qualified lead, we'll delete callback time. We don't actually need that. We're going to add all these stuff. So budget status, the call industry, all the details that we actually need to be able to have a bit more observability and insight into what was going on in the calls. So when we add those, we want to go to our first if statement 4 nodes back. So we'll find under phone number here, these variables that we're collecting. Industry is going to be, oh, I mapped that to the wrong one. So call industry, oh, having a bad time over here. Call industry, we'll assign to the industry. Budget status will go up here. Call summary, we'll wait for a second. And then our current systems map into here. Pain points, drag into there. Preferred meeting time and timeline, 3 months. And then for the summary, we can just type up summary and we can map that from here. Call summary, cool. Awesome. So that's mapping those variables we collected to that contact that was qualified. If I test workflow and we get a successful run, I can head back to that contact. You'll see what I mean. All these details on the side are populated. Perfect. Budget status, blah, blah, blah. Now we'll just map that for unqualified leads and like the callback leads. So go through and mapping all of this stuff. So it's going to be easier to, okay. Yeah. So for these bad timing and unqualified ones that abruptly hung up and didn't give that follow-up time frame, we don't really want to add any properties, right? There's nothing to add there. Same with failed and voicemail. The only other property that we'll add is in this callback time one. So we can add an option. Oh, my bad. Add property. And we're going to look for the custom properties. Yep. Add property. And that is going to be call summary. We'll add as well as the callback time. So to get the mappings of that, we'll just come out over into here and we'll get the call summary because this will remain the same in terms of the expression. And then we can get just any one of these and we'll just remap it manually. So paste that in there and this is going to be call, perfect. And look at that, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to activate this scenario, create a new contact, run through our final call. Now to run all this stuff, guys, just make sure it's active at the top here. Same with this one. We'll unpin this data as well. Save. So we got 2 scenarios here. Bang, bang. You'll see in progress. So let's answer this.
How are you today?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. We help businesses improve their operational efficiency through custom software solutions. Do you have a few minutes to chat about how we might be able to help your business?
Yeah, sure.
Great. Can you tell me a bit about your business and the industry you're in?
I'm in the marketing industry, and we run a marketing agency.
Thanks for sharing. What systems or processes are you currently using to manage your agency's operations?
We use a variety of different systems, HubSpot, Zero.
Got it. What would you say are the biggest challenges or inefficiencies you face with your current systems?
They're just pretty slow, expensive, and yeah, don't fit our business really.
I understand. At Growth Partners, we have several solutions that could address these issues. For instance, Operations OS can help automate your workflows, making them faster and more efficient. Insight Analytics can provide deep data analysis to help you make better decisions. And Customer Connect can enhance your client relationship management. We recently helped a similar marketing agency streamline their operations and reduce costs significantly with these solutions. What sets us apart is our ability to customize the software to fit your specific needs, provide full implementation support, and ensure seamless integration with your existing systems. Does this sound like something that could benefit your agency?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. Let me ask a few questions to understand your needs better. What's your timeline for implementing a new solution? Are you looking to do this in the next few months?
Yeah, next 3 months.
Okay, we can. Perfect. And do you have a budget allocated for this project, or is that something still being decided?
Yeah, about 10
Also,
to
who else-
20,000 for my budget.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. Besides yourself, is there anyone else involved in evaluating or making the final decision on this project? Got
No.
it. Thank you for clarifying.
No, it's just myself.
Great. Lastly, how would you measure the success of a new software? Great. Based on our conversation, I think it would be valuable to have you speak with our sales representative who specializes in marketing solutions. They can provide a more tailored overview of how we could help with your specific challenges. Would you be available for a 30-minute call this week? I can suggest some specific times. How about Thursday at 2 p.m. or Friday at 10 a.m.? Do either of those work for you?
Yeah, Friday at 10 a.m. Let's do that.
Perfect. Could I have your email address?
Jonas@talkai.au. If we just wait here, and we'll see the execution is going to come through here, and we should be qualified into that top one. And as we can see, we just hit that. If I reload, open deal, there we go, perfect. Now if I go into this contact and scroll down, we have our call summary, industry, budget. There we go, Friday at 10 a.m. Perfect. So everything works well. And as we did before, the unqualified bad timing states work fine also. So we did it, guys, a big one. And of course, you can add some other automations off the back of this. So for example, when a lead status is open, we can grab a specific property and schedule that in. You know, I can go ahead here and perhaps plug in my lead qualification appointment booking functions and things like that when we're qualified. Of course, we can tweak this conversation to be a bit better, but as far as the flow and the different decision trees that we have here, it's working great. And what I'll do is I'll leave perhaps the structure of this workflow in the description below. But as far as our lead qualification and our HubSpot integration, that is working perfectly. So everyone, that is it for today. Thank you all for watching. If you found this video useful, please leave a like and a comment below. It helps me out knowing I'm doing a good job. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button. That is it. I'll catch you next week.